Hallelujah, hallelujah. Can we give them a round of applause, please?
Can the choir wait a moment so that we introduce it formally to the audience? This is the Forte Choir. We have the news that this choir had won the platinum at BCM Choral Music. And the impressive score for their achievement is not just 75, it's 86%. Thank you, Forte Choir. You make us proud. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, choir. Good morning to you all protocol observed. Sanibonani, Molweni, Tumelang, Tobela. We are honored and blessed. I forgot to say, Goeiemorgen. We are honored and blessed to be your program directors for this session. We will be sure, very sure, to drive you safely. We'll be careful with you on the speed humps. And you know what? We'll take you to the final destination right on time. I am Hlengiwe Kwebu, the Acting Deputy Dean in the Faculty of Health Sciences. I'm also a Senior Lecturer in the Department of Nursing and Public Health. I'm going to hand over to my co-director next to me to introduce herself as well and continue with the program. Thank you very much.
I am Lule Kwabaleni, the Senior Consultant Teaching and Learning Center here in the University of Forte. Thank you. And at this time, would like, according to the program, we will move fast and we'll land safely. And as we are moving fast, we are going to call upon our Honorable Mother, the Acting Director for the Teaching and Learning Center, and that is none other than Professor Yulin Schiller. Can you please, Prof, come to the stage and inform us why are we here? It is said you are going to welcome us and you will have your opening remarks. I don't know what she will say. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Honorable Mother. That's a new one. But thank you for seeing me as your mother. Okay, Program Directors, Vice Chancellor, our Interim Deputy Vice Chancellor of Teaching and Learning. Thank you. Our deans in the house, all of our deans, directors, heads of departments, our esteemed colleagues, our students, our distinguished guests, good morning to you all. It's a great privilege to welcome you to our second day of our Teaching and Learning Week as we officially open the 2025 Teaching and Learning Conference. Yesterday at our Indaba laid a powerful foundation with thought-provoking dialogue and reflection. Today we're going to continue and build on that momentum and turn our collective attention to the theme before us, artificial intelligence and decolonizing of the curriculum. This theme is not only timely, but it's deeply urgent in the landscape of higher education. And I have to say, the first time that I heard this theme, I was like, how do we put this together? But indeed, this has been a theme of ongoing discussion for quite a number of years in the higher education sector. As I welcome you to our annual Teaching and Learning Week, I also want to reflect briefly on how this conference came into being. For many years, the Teaching and Learning Center has hosted colloquia that became important spaces for dialogue, debate, and exchange. And in 2019, the Vice Chancellor envisioned that these gatherings should grow into fully fledged academic conferences. Yes, VC, that was you. One that not only highlights the scholarship of teaching and learning, but also engages directly with major debates in the higher education context. We all know the disruptions in 2020 and 2021, and in 2022, we hosted our first Teaching and Learning Conference online with 80 participants, focusing on the critical topic of blended learning. This theme resonated globally as blended learning gained traction as a way to accommodate increasingly varied student populations and to enhance learning environments through the online teaching materials. In South Africa, blended learning became recognized in the classroom as we transitioned from traditional classrooms to practices to more blended approach. In 2023, our conversation turned to the pressing debates around decolonizing of the curriculum. And across South Africa, this discourse intensified, not only within universities, but also through activism and policy critique. But what we are realizing, and scholars observed, that the new liberal strategic planning continued to limit the prioritization of epistemic decolonization, the mere tick-boxing exercises, and we need to delve much deeper than that. Others emphasize the urgent need to address deep-seated curricular dichotomies and Eurocentric dominance while centering African epistemologies. This urgency was mirrored in renewed calls for meaningful transformation within the higher education institutions. Then, in 2024, we explored the transformative role of artificial intelligence in higher education. Internationally, AI was heralded for its potential to enhance learning outcomes and inclusion, while also raising serious ethical and legal challenges. And now here, in 2025, we weave these threads together into our 4th annual Teaching and Learning Conference under the theme AI and Decolonization of the Curriculum, Prospects, Progressive and Retrogressive Practices and Experiences. This year, we are delighted to welcome 178 delegates, which I don't all see in the room yet, from 8 universities across South Africa. Over the next 2 days, we will be enriched by 5 keynote presentations and over 60 paper presentations, all engaging on this theme of the conference. Our theme reflects our deep commitment to asking difficult but necessary questions. AI brings with exciting possibilities for innovation, access, and new pedagogies. Yet it also presents serious risks and challenges. How do we ensure that AI liberates knowledge, amplifies diverse voices, and dismantle historic inequities rather than reinforce them? This is the central question that will guide our conversations. But as we begin, I would also like to take a moment to honor our late Professor Vuyisile Nkonki, who sadly passed away in April this year. Professor Nkonki was more than a director of our Teaching and Learning Center. He was a visionary colleague and a champion of excellence in higher education. And his passion and commitment touched countless students and staff. He saw technology as a tool for access and transformation, and he believed in the power of education to uplift and empower. And I vividly remembered in 2024, I was right there, and I spoke to Professor Nkonki and congratulated him on the strides that he made with this conference on AI and higher education. His legacy lives in the very fabric of this conference, in our commitment to innovation, to decolonizing knowledge, and to building inclusive and equitable spaces for learning. Though he is no longer with us, we celebrate his life and carry his vision forward. Colleagues, conferences such as this is much more about just presentations and paper. It's really a time to connect, about community and about shaping future of our universities together. I encourage you to use this space not only to share your work, but also to engage and to listen, to challenge each other, and to imagine boldly. Let us see these 2 days as an opportunity to deepen our collective understanding and to build our networks that will sustain our work long after the conference ends. And for the students in the room, this is where you build connections at conferences and usually around coffee. For the Teaching and Learning Center, it's my great pleasure to welcome you to what promises to be a rich, inspiring, collegial conference. May the discussions challenge us, the collaboration energize us, and the ideas shared here move us closer to the higher education system that is inclusive, transformative, and just. I wish you the most productive and inspiring 2025 Teaching and Learning Conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Sheila. We have noted in the welcome that she says this is a space to engage, to shape the future for the Teaching and Learning Center, to listen to one another, to challenge, so nobody will feel offended when challenged, to build connections. Allow us to build connections with everyone in the room. Thank you very much, Professor Sheila. Over to you, Sheng.
Thank you very much once again, and thank you very much, Prof, for the amazing welcome. I'm sure everybody feels welcome now. And now I understand why they say teaching is the only profession that creates other professions. I believe that just encapsulates the heart of why we're here today. And that just is what gets me excited today. So without further ado, to address the purpose of the day, I would like to welcome our next speaker, the interim Deputy Vice Chancellor, Teaching and Learning, Professor Patrick Asode. Can we please give him a round of applause?
Good morning. Vice Chancellor, deans here, directors, heads of department, colleagues, students, distinguished guests, Morlueni. It is quite an honor for me to be having this role today, to share the purpose of this gathering. I was just talking to some colleagues from the Teaching and Learning Center and telling them how it is that as a law lecturer, I've consistently, and a lot of us, at least in my faculty, have consistently found them quite challenging. Their role clearly forces us, because we say we're trained as lawyers, not as teachers. And the colleagues from the Center keep telling us, no, you are teachers, and you must get down to learning the basics of being effective as such. So it's really great to be here giving support to this conference. We at Forte hold this conference annually. And the reason clearly is because teaching and learning are exceedingly important to us. You could say that they are at the very heart of our university's mission. Research and community engagement may extend our reach, but it is through teaching and learning that we shape futures, nurture talent, and empower the next generation. The purpose of this conference is to create a space where we as academics, practitioners, and scholars can pause, reflect, and critically engage with the evolving demands of higher education. Each year, the Children Learning Center chooses a theme for this conference that speaks directly to our context and to challenges facing higher education in South Africa and beyond. This year's theme, Prof. Sheila has referred to it, AI and the decolonization of the curriculum, prospects, progressive and retrogressive practices, and experiences, was not chosen lightly. I'm smiling when you speak about retrogressive practices, because I mentioned yesterday how it is in law that we still use a lot of Latin in teaching about legal concepts. And I wondered, even as I reflect on this conference, could we have done better? I mentioned yesterday how I was moderating a question paper from another university on introduction to law just in the last 72 hours. And I couldn't help myself but to note that in one question, there were no less than 4 Latin phrases. And I started reflecting on this conference, and I just wondered about what the experts refer to as epistemic access. How well does a student connect with legal concepts that are articulated in the Latin language? But at the same time, I recall that at law school, and I was at law school long ago, VC, I don't want to say how many decades ago, that might give away my age, but I remember at law school that it was still the same challenges, that at first year, one of the first things you must do is get comfortable with concepts that come at you in the Latin language. Of course, at that time, as young law students, you didn't mind that much. Sometimes amongst yourselves, as law students, you even competed as to who could pronounce the Latin words better. And that's in Africa. But allow me, colleagues, to proceed with it. But the idea, though, of this conference, clearly, is to enable us to reflect and engage with current contemporary demands of our sector. The theme presents both a challenge and an invitation. A challenge because AI has already begun to reshape how we teach, how we learn, and how we imagine knowledge. Of course, I don't want to speak about the challenges that it's also posing for how we assess with credibility and rigor. But the theme is also an invitation because decolonizing the curriculum remains one of the most urgent and unfinished tasks in our universities. I already mentioned the challenge that we face in law in how we try to deliberately be intentional in diminishing perhaps the use of the Latin language in our teaching of the law. Part of the purpose of this conference is to ask the question, how do we hold these two conversations, the use of AI in higher education and the decolonization of the curriculum? How do we hold those two conversations at the same time? Over the next 2 days, through keynote addresses, paper presentations, and engaged discussions, we hope to achieve 3 things. The first is to deepen our collective understanding of AI in education, not as a technological fix, but as a tool that must be critically assessed for its potential to advance or hinder transformation. Second, we hope to be able to reflect honestly on the progress and setbacks in the decolonization of our curricula, recognizing that this is a continuous, contested, and necessary journey. So I mentioned the fact that decades ago, law students had to engage with foreign language and foreign concepts in the law, and up to today, decades later, we're still there. Thirdly, we hope to foster, through this conference, collaboration across institutions, disciplines, and generations, so that together we could shape a higher education system that is inclusive, just, and responsive to the needs of our society. VC, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, the purpose of this conference is not simply to talk, but to learn also from one another, to build networks of practice, and to carry forward new ideas into our classrooms, into our policies, and into our communities. In doing so, we hopefully will affirm our shared commitment to excellence in teaching and learning. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Ode. Can we please give him another round of applause? Thank you. Thank you, Prof, for clearly outlining today the purpose of this year's conference. And thank you for unpacking the theme of this year's conference. When I looked at it, I thought, oh my God, this is so pregnant. It was so amazing. So I think you just breaking that down and also just showing that it represents both opportunities but also challenges, and that we are here to ask questions but also answer them. I think that is really amazing. And also thank you very much for reminding us that the gathering is not just about presentations, but also about strengthening our collective vision, and also in teaching and learning, just not at Forte, but also beyond. So thank you very much for reminding us all that, and that we are free to collaborate, free to learn from another, and free to answer those questions that we've always had, and also just reminding us that we are here to all learn together. Thank you very much for that. I'm going to call upon my colleague, who is going to introduce us to the next speaker.
I am honored today, and I feel very small that I will be honored by the chief of the century in the University of Forte, by our vice principal, by the Honorable MEC for Forte, the President for Forte, and the President today will just be commanded by me. Things can change. That is part of decolonization. That is part of AI. He will come to the stage and tell us whether there is marriage in the two. Because we think we are doing what he said we must do in the university. But we'll hear from him whether we are doing it right or we need to step aside and somebody else to step in. In that note, colleagues, I will request the standing ovation from those who are not the VC of the university, as we call upon Professor Sakela Buhlungu onto the stage to give us the opening address for our conference with a theme, AI and decolonization of the curriculum, prospects, progressive and retrogressive practices and experiences. Over to you, colleagues, with that standing ovation as Professor Buhlungu is coming to the stage. Thank you.
Right?
Right.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. That was quite an introduction. Thank you very much, Dr. Baleni and Dr. Gwebo. And good morning, everyone. To those from outside, welcome to Fort Hare. This is Fort Hare. This is it. You've arrived. You have arrived. Thank you very much. I do say things sometimes, and sometimes I say them in passing and I forget them. I don't recall, but it's not untrue. I don't recall saying that this must be an annual conference, but I seem to have said it, and it's somebody grasped it, and I'm very glad I said it, because here we are. We're meeting every year, and we have these very, very important events, moments of reflection and deliberation. But first of all, greetings to everyone, all the delegates. 8 universities, South African universities. I believe there are people also from outside the university who are participating. And then, of course, greetings to the interim DVC for teaching and learning, Professor Osode. Greetings to the deans. I did see the Dean of Education, Professor Makwele. I did see Professor Sbali in the room, and others, and many HODs. Greetings to Professor Schiller, the acting director. And then, of course, greetings, and very, very importantly, greetings to Emeritus Professor Renuka Vital. Emeritus Professor Renuka Vital. Very important. And I'm saying that deliberately because she retired in July, at the end of July, and she's now here as a keynote speaker, but from outside Fort Hare, which is unusual because she's always been that kind of central figure, especially when it came to this conference and these events and so on. She's been a central pillar in terms of teaching and learning at our university. Thank you very much. Just about this event, yes, indeed, it's an annual event. It's a moment, as I said, a moment for us to sit and reflect and invite colleagues, open our doors to our colleagues from other universities to come and reflect with us, graduates who continue to serve in all sectors of society. You go to any boardroom in this country, you're most likely to find a University of Fort Hare graduate. Not just graduates sitting, but excelling. And I don't have to produce evidence. The evidence is out there. So our commitment to skills development in this country, or rather our commitment to teaching and learning, is basically contributing to skills development in this country. I'm glad that Professor Schiller mentioned Professor Nkongi. I've come to associate, in my head, this conference and these events with Professor Nkongi as the Director of Teaching and Learning. And I think this one, for me, at least standing here, he passed on the 3rd of May, tragically, in his hometown in Butterworth. It was a wound that cut very deep. It was a wound that cut deep because Professor Nkongi was this the most gentle soul, but the most committed. One person was most committed, like many of us, of course, to teaching and learning, to advancing teaching and learning at this university. And I could never think of teaching and learning without him. I could never think of these events without him. And it was really, for me, a very deep kind of wound. And so, at least if there's one thing we can do, is to dedicate this year, this conference, this event, and all the deliberations to his memory as one person who served us all the way till the end of his life. And it is one of those. We've done all the things. We did the services, we went to his funeral, and so on and so forth, so that those moments have passed. But I just want us to remember, to use this as an opportunity to remember his contribution. And I'm sure I'm speaking on behalf of his colleagues in the TLC and in other people in the entire university who served with him, who worked with him. He's one of those people. I could never think of anyone saying, Nkonge is my enemy. He was never like that. He was kind of a gentle soul, better than us. They don't make them like that anymore. I also, as I conclude, want to pay special tribute because of coincidence. She's been asked to be a keynote speaker at this event, and as I said, she retired in July. I want to also pay tribute to Emeritus Professor Renuka Vital, who has been a DVC for, first of all, academic affairs when she arrived in 2019, in August 2019, and has been part of these events since 2019, and then later became, when we unbundled the portfolio, became the Deputy Vice Chancellor for Teaching and Learning since 2021, I think. I want to pay special tribute to her because I'm going to use all imaginable terms, and I know, I'm sure many people saw Vital is difficult. She's impossible. She's tough. She's a hard taskmaster. All of those kinds of things. She's meticulous. She demands a lot. And she's hardworking. I'm trying to think of anything that people may have said about it, good or bad, whatever you take your pick. But that's what she was to this university. I know many people, senior people, have sat in or chaired or sat in at their interviews. I remember vividly the day we interviewed Professor Vital in Johannesburg. She was not interviewed here. We worked with a recruitment agency in Johannesburg, and she sat there and she was interviewed. I remember vividly. I will not divulge here. I'm not at liberty. But I remember vividly how she dealt with the interview. And then I remember when she joined us in August, and some of the things she said, this shall change, this within her portfolio. And she changed many things. She impacted many people. And many people screaming and kicking and, what's the phrase? Kicking and screaming, right? Yeah, kicking and screaming. She changed, she impacted many people. But most importantly, the reason our teaching and learning at the University of Fort Hare is at this respectable, this respectable kind of stage right now is to a very, very large degree thanks to her. And so I want if you could give, she's here, so you can give her a round of applause. She's here. I also I had the privilege also of working with Vital at executive level, sitting in many meetings. I can tell you now, she had an opinion on anything and everything. And everything in the meeting, whether it's about finance, whether it was student affairs or teaching and learning, she had an opinion on everything. And I tell you, chairing meetings with Professor Vital, sitting in a meeting, was not the easiest thing. Okay, it was not an easy thing. So I had to manage things and manage her and manage everybody else, and so on. But I think that we're meeting this year. This was a last year until July, and I think that it's proper and fitting that we invited her to this conference, that TLC invited her to this conference to share her experiences. She's a highly experienced person. I always said that she did 2 terms at the DVC at University of KwaZulu-Natal and did a term as a full term as a DVC here. So she's most experienced DVC in the country, if you like. And I'm very pleased that we're going to be sharing, she's going to be sharing her experiences with us today. In conclusion, we've managed to stabilize. If you were to ask me what we've done in the last 8-9 years at the university, we've managed to stabilize the university. We've stabilized the university. Teaching and learning now takes place uninterrupted. Uninterrupted. Ask any lecturer sitting in this room who works at Forte, how many of your lectures were disrupted by kids kind of pushing you out? That's the history. That's history now. It doesn't happen. We've managed, and our job, and this is very, very important. Our job is not to tell you what to teach, how to teach, who to teach. Our job is to facilitate that you teach in conditions that are conducive. That you teach in a peaceful environment, you teach uninterrupted, undisturbed by any other extraneous kind of influences. And that's our job. So I suppose I was sitting there when the previous speakers were speaking, and I was saying, actually, what's the job of a VC? Does the university need a VC? And I suppose now that I'm almost out, the job of a VC is very minimal. There's no job. So no need to appoint another one. But I can say one thing. The VC has to enable teaching and learning. Has to enable teaching and learning. That's the most important thing. Not to tell you what to teach, where you teach, how you teach. That's the HOD's job. That's the HOD. Me and the DVC, teaching and learning, is to enable. Right? Create the right conditions, make sure that nobody tries any games around it, that you teach. And so if there's any assessment of us and our job, judge us by, have we made sure that you can teach in conditions that allow you to profess your craft, and so on. And so, for us and for me, is this my last TLC event? No. It's the last one, right? Yes. One more. Oh, there's one more. Yes, there's one more. All right. Okay. I think it's extremely important. If I said in 2019 or so that these conferences shall continue, I will say now, let this continue more and more and more. Let's have more. Let's have greater participation. Let us, the University of Forte, take the lead. Let's take the lead and show that there's a need to reflect on teaching and learning. And next year, one more. Next year, the University of Forte will be turning 110 years old. 110. So we've been in this business for 110 years old. We've earned it. We can speak about it with authority. And once again, all the best to the delegates, participants, presenters of papers, keynotes for this one. We've earned it. we've earned it. Thank you very much.
Can you please have a seat? By the powers invested on me today, I can request you to sit down and wait for the audience, the distinguished guests that are here, the researchers, as Pumizandla, bonke abantu abakule ndlu, everyone in the room, to reflect on what our VCs have said. I'll request the mic if anyone has got a question to the VC or has a comment on what VC has challenged us to take the lead in AI and decolonization not being a phrase. If we have any comment and you have any question to the VC is in front of you. These are the rare opportunities we have, whereby we sit next to the VC and we ask VC some of our personal concerns about teaching and learning. Thank you, colleagues. Any hand? Any hand in the room? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm just asking this question because I can see people are reluctant to ask Zibula a question. Zibula, in your reflection about decolonization, oh, sure. Thank you very much for asking that I stand in order to ask a question. You see, I'm working in a curriculum space, so I'm very radical. Hence, I'm also asking this question to the Honorable VC. I'm from the University of the Western Cape, and this university is known for its history as the intellectual home of the democratic left. And I'm very proud to be in that space because it allows critical engagement with concepts, with practices of the people. I want the VC to respond to the question around decolonization being this highly contested concept. Is it probably not because of the presence of coloniality itself in ways in which we see the things? Couldn't be that the realities in a country like ours in South Africa, where inequalities continue to be racialized, makes this concept, whether we like it or not, to be something that we can still hold on and make those in the positions of power to account for why things continue to be what they are today. What is the condition of the world? I'm just being reminded by another Marxist scholar in the teaching and learning, Professor Krisipawi from Rhodes University. She posed the question, what must be the condition of the world for these kind of practices and realities to be what they are today? I want your comment, VC, and I'm asking this question because no one wanted to ask you a question. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Salvata. Okay, another question? Any other hand or a comment? We'll take 3. Any other hand? The third one? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Isi, good morning. Mine is a comment. I was going to type in chat GPT to say, ask the Vice Chancellor a question, and I realized, no, let me be direct. Mine is a comment towards an AI policy. I think it's something that's evolving in a number of universities, and I'm commending the strides that the TLC is making, because I saw a platform which is being created for commentary around what that AI policy would look like. And I think one of my viewpoints about that, it's not more combative and punitive, but how we can, as Forte, creatively use AI to benefit our scholars, our students. So it's just to commend in the public, because sometimes people talk in the dark about things that are not right, complaining. I really am grateful for Prof. Sheila and your team, the direction that we are taking towards a conversation, towards an AI policy. And I think this is something that I'm seeing happening in quotes, some progressive universities. And we are also being ranked as a part of those progressive universities who are having this dialogue around the policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Can you clap hands for the TLC? There was a hand at the back.
Okay, thank you very much, Program Director. If you call upon the name Innocent Chikume while still in the midst of sleeping, I will respond.
Okay.
Thank you very much, VC, for your presentation. I can say that it was pregnant with meaning. Mine is not that much. I'm still a student, so I'll speak on behalf of students. And when I speak about this after the presentation, I'm not trying to be selfish. Ne? Why? It's because I'm also an international student, so I will be very selfish. Because if I would theater, no one will speak on my behalf. Right. VC, there is a problem that we always encounter as international students, because in your presentation, you touched much about to say that there have been many successes for the past close to say 8 years or 6 years. But I feel like there's, the university still lags behind when it comes to international students. I have a problem, especially in terms of postgraduate funding and the issue of clearance of fees. And what do they call it when the university issues to say we've come to an agreement probably with the management executive committee to say that we are saying that students who are owing a certain amount must be registered, amongst other things. In all those articulations, you find that international students, they are excluded. For instance, if they say that if you are owing a cap which is less than 30,000, you must be a local student. So you find out that, let's say Innocent is owing 30,000. My parents have made it to clear the fees. I'm left, let's say, with 5,000. You try to give proof to say that, but hey, I've tried to make this initiative, and we are left probably with, hypothetically, let's say 3 days for registration to close. You'll be told that, you must clear your fees and pay the registration fee, that is 3.5. So can there be something that can be done? Because I think I've been raising this many times. So I don't know, in terms of success, I believe the University of Forte is recognized internationally, and in the preamble, it's well articulated. So what can be done, honestly, in terms so that we also feel proud and blended to say, indeed, we are at the institution of University of Forte. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Those are the 3 good questions and comments, VC. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Let's starting with the first question. Again, I'm reluctant to pronounce the issue of debates about decolonization. That's for academics. That's for the intellectuals. that are in the university. The role of management is not to pronounce. The role of management on matters like that is not to lead, but to facilitate. I want to make it very clear. So I will not say, do this or don't do that. Those debates are matters for academics themselves to deliberate, to agree, to disagree, to go to conferences about, to write papers about, and all of that. And so, yes, the issue of decolonization will happen in a context that is inscribed with coloniality, as you say. There's no question about that. But how you deliberate on it, I know you're from the University of the Left. What do you call it? That's for you, the left, you and others, to deliberate on. How we identify the footprint of coloniality in our academic, institutional environments is your job. That's the role that you have to play. And how then you can then infuse decoloniality, that's your job too. It's not for management. No VC is employed to do that. That's not the job of a VC. It's definitely outside the job description. So I'm not going to come here and prescribe. When I step out of that office, I'll have a view. I'll have a very strong view. But I always hesitate to say things that might be seen. I tell you what I've learned in the time I've been here, the name of the VC gets dropped all the time. Anyone who wants to say something and say it with authority, they'll say, I spoke to the VC. I had tea with the VC last week. So that's why I hesitate to say, because I want to give, I've never spoken on issues to do with curriculum in the university. I leave that to you. That's your job. And so ask me the minute I step outside that office, I'll have a very strong view. I'll have a very strong view on decolonization. And sometimes how it's been used for good purposes and how it's been abused and how people have actually mispronounced on decolonization. But wait for that day. It's not too far for you to Then the question, Prof. Chinyamurindi, thanks very much for that. I think what I take from what you're saying is simple. Yours was a comment. I think it's time. In fact, one of the things that we've done over this last period is policy development. We found an environment where either policies were outdated or not existent. And what we've done is made a major push in terms of policy development, especially in the area of teaching and learning. Especially in the area of teaching and learning. And one area where we have not moved, and it's about time, and I take your point very, Professor Sode, I think that's something, is to have a policy on AI. Because the longer we keep that unoccupied, the more you're going to have a proliferation of views, of practices, some of them contradictory. So it's very important that we think very, very, very much about that and how those policies should facilitate and support the work of students, the work of staff. So that's my comment on your thing. And I'm glad the interim DVC is here, and it's something that we should take on very, very, very firmly. Now, Innocent Shigume, I'm glad you're a student. You've been around. You and I have been around. we both of us have been around, and at one point you were in the SRC, and I remember your contributions, and always on point. I think you're on point here, too, but you're on point at the wrong place. I take the point. I don't think the Teaching and Learning Conference is going to address the issue of fees for national or international students. I'm being very honest with you. Okay? I think that at an SRC Management Forum, that point will be well placed on the agenda, not here. But okay, let's that here. But I don't want to leave the point unaddressed. The issue of fees and how it relates to national, SADC, and international students, because there are three categories. There's national students, South Africans, and then there's SADC. There's SADC protocols around students from the region. And then there's the rest international. All of that is in policy, in government policy. And so we follow policy. The first thing is this, whether you're SADC or international, the thing is this, it says, and the study permit says, there's a question there, it says, do you have money to pay for your fees? And you always tick yes. Now you're telling me about debt, but there was a yes there. So I think we can stop it right there. You ticked yes, I have the money to pay all my fees. And therefore the issue of debt, therefore, is dealt with by that tick. So, but we can talk about it at the SRC management thing, and but I'm glad to have you here, and I look forward to see you on stage in April next year. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, VC. Thank you for the questions, colleagues. Because of time, we won't take another round of questions. Can I ask the VC to step forward so that we can say thank you? As a teaching and learning center report.
Right. Yes.
Thank everyone who comes to your house. And this is the token of appreciation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm handing over to you, Shane.
Thank you very much once more, VC. We had said at the beginning that we are going to be driving you quite nicely. I think this is the time where we take a deep breath, because we are about to welcome and get our keynote for the day. So feel free to relax, sit back, and allow me to introduce our keynote speaker for the day. It is with great pleasure and honor to introduce our keynote speaker for Teaching and Learning Week Conference 2025. Our keynote is Professor Renuka Vithal. She is an emeritus professor of mathematics education in the Faculty of Education at the University of Fort Hare, having recently retired as a Deputy Vice Chancellor Teaching and Learning. Prof. Vithal's academic journey is remarkable, as she holds degrees with distinctions from the University of KwaZulu-Natal, an MPhil in mathematical education from the University of Cambridge, and a doctoral degree in natural sciences from Aalborg University in Denmark. She has also been awarded an honorary doctorate at Aalborg University's Faculty of Engineering, Science and Medicine. Starting her career as a high school mathematics teacher, Prof. Vithal rose to the academic ranks to become a full professor, the Dean of the Faculty of Education at UKZN, before serving in senior leadership for more than 15 years, including as the first Deputy Vice Chancellor for Teaching and Learning. With over 90 publications, her research spans mathematics education, mathematics education, teacher education, curriculum reform, higher education. She is internationally recognized for her work on the social, cultural, and political dimensions of mathematics education. And recently, She co-edited the influential ICMI Study 24 on mathematics curriculum reforms around the world. She is also a proud member of the Academy of Science of South Africa, the ASSAF. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to welcome today on stage our keynote speaker, Prof. Fenuga Vithal. Can we clap hands as she comes on stage?
Is there a way to connect them?
Yes.
Okay. Are you able to connect me up? Sorry, you want my laptop? Okay. Good morning, everyone. Getting the technology in order. Good morning, VC, members of the executive, deans, colleagues from other universities, and students. It's wonderful to address you as a professor, emeritus professor, and not as a DVC teaching and learning. I'm just wondering what's going on with this. So I hope I forward. Right. I'm very pleased to be able to, this is my first keynote. I already have several others arranged now that I'm an emeritus professor, which I'm looking forward to. But I'm very happy that my first one is here at the University of Fort Hare in the Teaching and Learning Conference. I used to always wonder why the Teaching and Learning Conference never asked me to do a keynote in the time I was at DVC. But I'm very happy that they did come around to asking me now. As VC has said, I always have strong views on things, and that's also the case for my area of scholarship. So I don't know which one I'm pressing wrongly, or can you just, then how do I get to the next slide? I'm pressing it, but it's not moving. Which one do I press? Okay. I know it's a long title. I don't normally have long titles for my talk. And I could have just had the first part, creating educational specializations in university disciplines through the scholarship of teaching and learning. And end it there. Because the point I want to make, the case I want to argue is that in fact the scholarship of teaching and learning is an important means by which the changes in teaching and learning in higher education can be contributed to. And in this case then, for this conference, I took the notion of the two areas of artificial intelligence and curriculum transformation. Now, I want to just focus on a few things. The main argument I'm making in this keynote is how important it is for us to create educational specializations across university disciplines through the scholarship of teaching and learning. when I first became a DVC in my first term as a DVC, from having been a dean in the Faculty of Education and before that a professor of maths education, came to at that time already, I knew that it was going to be really important to encourage academics across the board to be interested in their teaching and in student learning by encouraging them to do research in some aspect of their discipline. And so through the time that I have been a Deputy Vice Chancellor, I have been very much interested in this notion of developing educational specializations within different disciplines. I once was critiqued by, in fact, I remember a professor in health sciences who said, but you're taking away people from doing their PhDs in their disciplines. And that's not the intention. The intention is that the educational dimension of a discipline is one area of specializations along a whole number of other specializations in a discipline. And the educational specialization is important to have expertise, really research and scholarly expertise in driving changes in teaching and learning within a discipline. So it's an enduring theme in my thinking, and that led me to the work in the scholarship of teaching and learning. And I want to, in this keynote, share some thoughts and reflections about how I see that as being important for artificial intelligence and for curriculum transformation. So I don't have too many slides. So what is the scholarship of teaching and learning? So I came to this notion of the scholarship of teaching and learning well into my term as a DVC, and one of the seminal papers then is the one by Boyer, and I put it there because I thought I really think it's an important paper, because he really that paper really galvanized thinking around how teaching and learning could be considered as a scholarly endeavor within universities, where previously it didn't have status and prestige. And really about how the professors needed to be interested and how they could become interested in teaching and learning by seeing it as a scholarly endeavor. So towards the end of my first term and into the second term, I did a lot of reading in the literature on the scholarship of teaching and learning, SOTL, as it is called, and wrote a paper that analyzed and reflected critically on the work that we had done, and presented then the research in terms of 4 areas of the scholarship of teaching and learning: research and innovation, recognition, rewards, and academic promotions is another important area. A third is around professional development and practice, and a fourth, which I argued for, not well developed in SOTL, but for policy review and development. So in that paper, I argued that SOTL was important if we conceptualize it as multidimensional and inclusive, and that you could grow it institutionally through an organic approach. One interesting aside about this paper was that after, it took me a long time to write it, by the way, I think almost 2 years, but once it got published, I was contacted by one of the reviewers who contacted the editor of the journal and invited me to do a keynote at the International Society for the Scholarship of Teaching and Learning. And that was a very interesting experience, because it's very much a conference like this, but it really brings together international scholars working in teaching and learning in really very different disciplines. So I'll come back to that. Now, The case I'm making for creating educational specializations in different disciplines is by the different ways in which research and innovation can be encouraged in teaching and learning, in the provision of grants, in research publications, and also through encouraging at least one or two members of every discipline or department to become interested and become real experts by taking master's and doctoral degrees in the teaching and learning of the discipline. So whether it's chemistry education, language education, physics education, marketing, whatever the area that they undertake that research. And I did co-lead 2 cohorts in higher education studies with academics who then specialized in areas of this of their discipline, which was very interesting. The other area that I'm going to mention today that I think is important in creating educational specializations is in how the recognition, rewards, and academic promotions work. And this is important because what it has done is brought about what we could call epistemological participatory parity between teaching and learning and research. Let me say something about what I mean there. In a study on academic promotion, Reshma Subai actually presented this idea, taking the notion of participatory parity from Nancy Fraser's work, where, which focuses on issues of social justice and inequality, and argues on the importance of participatory parity in recognition, in representation, and in distribution, with the knowledge generation parity. So what the argument is that what the scholarship of teaching and learning has over time achieved by recognizing teaching and learning in academic promotions, in policies, etc., in universities, is brought about parity, a recognition of the importance of teaching and learning to be promoted to a professor, equal to research. And in an analysis that I co-authored with her, we were able to show that that is one of the ways in which gender parity in the professoriate can be achieved. And gender parity in the professoriate is very important for ensuring that you can have women DVCs and senior managers, etc., which are who are underrepresented there. Okay, I could say a lot more about that, so let me make a comment about SOTL and curriculum transformation. So clearly, still with the same thing, that SOTL as research in teaching and learning curricula is a means to understand and effect curriculum transformation or reforms in the discipline. Now, there's just been released a CHE baseline study of conceptions of curriculum transformation in South African universities. It was released just a few months ago. I was one of the respondents to that study. It's quite an interesting study. I just listed 2 findings from the study. They came to the conclusion that there's a lack of consensus on the definition of curriculum transformation, which is something we're going to discuss quite a lot. But they, having done a methodology that involved all 26 universities, that's the conclusion they came to. And also that how curriculum transformation manifests differently at different levels of the institutions. Now, the one critique that I have of our curriculum transformation discussions in the country is that I find that the curriculum transformation discussions are dominated by the social sciences, by education, maybe to some extent law. What I don't find there is a discussion about what does curriculum transformation mean in mathematics, in physics, in chemistry. What does decoloniality or decolonization mean in the hard sciences? And that's really quite absent in the debates and discussion. Of course, I have a sharp interest in this. In my master's study, I looked at the area of ethnomathematics and its implications for curriculum in South Africa. And so there is quite a lot of work about what it means to teach mathematics in a way that students see it as a discipline that has been contributed not only by a European and Western world, but really many, many different cultures have contributed to that. But that is really absent in our discussions. I never see anyone from chemistry or physics speaking in a university about how they are decolonizing their curriculum and what that means. So maybe it's an area we can talk about. So as a scholar in curriculum studies, it's very clear that a curriculum is always a contested space. No matter where you're talking about curriculum in schools, whether it's mathematics curriculum, language or literature curricula, they are always contested spaces. Why? Because the curriculum is always a selection from a universe of knowledge. And there is somebody who makes that selection. There's some basis on which that selection is made and then codified, whether it's codified in official policies like program templates or module templates as official curricula, codified in practice by academics or teachers in the classroom by how they choose to present and teach specific content, etc. And then in the graduate attributes that students walk away with. So the fact that our curriculum, the debate on curriculum transformation is not special to this time. Curriculum debates and discussions and contestations are part of university environments, are part of educational environments. And here's the thing I want to just really emphasize from the points VC was making. As academics, we have a lot of freedom to decide what we want to teach. And I think sometimes we don't always realize that agency that we do have. The people you have to convince about whether you should be teaching that are your fellow peers. And of course also the students about how relevant it is and so on. But we do have a lot of freedom to choose. And so if your curriculum is not transformed, that's in your hands. What that curriculum should be transformed into is in your hands as academics. So I really do believe in that agency. So to me, I see decolonization now as kind of having run its course. It's 10 years or more about that we've been talking about it. And really what decolonization argument has been about a different selection to be made for that is constituted as a university curricula in whichever discipline. And it's, in the decoloniality, you don't hear that much about an education after apartheid. Like, apartheid was not the same as colonization for South Africans. Of course, colonization has happened differently in different parts of the world. And we have a unique experience of apartheid. I find that really missing. Because I can tell you, I have studied how apartheid maths education unfolded to create the situation we have now. And how enduring it is, and it will take generations to change that. So I do think that however we deal with it, in the different disciplines, it's going to have to, it will manifest differently, and it will depend on the people who are in those disciplines, right? The extent to which you want to push the envelope in your curricula and challenge your students and their experience. Like, I wish there was a curriculum where my 2 sons could have been in a class and experienced apartheid. Because when we talk about it, right, they don't quite believe it. They can't imagine it. So I just think there's There's such interesting things we can do in our curricula. But then I would say, and here I'm going to be a bit provocative, is that I don't think we're really doing curriculum transformation. Most of the time we're doing curriculum reform, right? We're more or less tinkering. A real curriculum transformation example I would say that I saw in effect was Aalborg University, where I studied, where they built Aalborg University and one other, Roskilde in Denmark, and there's some others in Germany and some other parts of Europe, universities that were built in the post-war period offering a radically different curriculum. So for example, at Aalborg University, the entire university curriculum is offered in the form of project work. And I was so fascinated when I went there. I actually co-authored a paper with my colleagues there on how did they teach mathematics, pure mathematics or mathematics. It's through project work, and there's a paper that still gets cited even as I speak. So let me move on then to social and artificial intelligence. We could say a lot more about curriculum transformation. So social, as research and in teaching and learning, is a means to understand and innovate using AI in different educational aspects of the different disciplines, right? Whether it's in teaching, learning, assessments, curriculum progression, academic administration, there's just so much different kinds of research that is happening on teaching and learning in different disciplines. And of course, taking a scholarly approach to teaching and learning means we can ask new and different questions for AI research and reflection. So we could focus on students, right? So I just want to say AI is already here, right? Everybody is using AI. Whether you realize it or not, whether, it's here, it's right with us and now. Students are using AI. I mean, so the question is, do we know who's using it, how they're using it, how are they using it in your specific discipline? Those are all really interesting research questions that could be asked. Of course, also academics are using AI, whether they are using it to prepare their lectures, whether they are using it in any number of ways, right? We are using AI. If you want to make fish soup, you just ask AI, what's the best recipe? So we all use AI. That's what I'm saying, right? It's with us now. And so, of course, how are we using it? How should we be using it? And therefore, the questions of what are the changes needed in university curricula, in teaching practices, in assessments, in the learning resources, all of that, now that AI is with us. It's the innovations, and it's changing rapidly, right? The innovations are just growing. The availability and use is uneven. Of course, we could talk about how this unevenness will entrench further inequalities within societies and also globally. So AI is changing the identities and relations of power between university students and teachers. And why I say that is because AI has changed the knowledge base of students, what students know, where they can access knowledge, what is the knowledge they already have before they come to your lecture. If you say you're doing a lecture on X, content X, they could have already looked at that content, they could have already heard lectures, other lectures, they're comparing you with things, podcasts, and what have you that they pick up on the internet, right? There's a whole different world our students are living in that we have to connect with and be aware of. So I think they're not just, and I don't think for a moment that the fact that we have students that are NSFAS and students that are not, that makes that much of a difference. Students are accessing knowledge and information. And so there is a way in which what students know now is in an imbalance with what lecturers know. So you might be in the dark about some things about AI, what AI is making available to your students, even as you're lecturing them. And I think that's changing the relations of power. I'm almost done. So I just I thought, well, why not just ask ChatGPT? Summarize what research shows about SOTL and AI. And this is what I just took the one paragraph. It had a whole lot of projects it pulled up from across the world that are being done in different universities. And then it said, final thoughts. SOTL research is actively exploring AI's potential as both a pedagogical enhancer and a subject of ethical scrutiny. Small-scale interventions show promising results in engagement, feedback, and efficiency, while frameworks, grants, and multi-institutional projects reveal growing infrastructure around responsible AI integration. However, there is also critical concerns, ethical, methodological, and policy-oriented, that demand continued reflection, human oversight, and interdisciplinary collaboration. And I just mentioned some examples there. They were very interesting, using AI chatbots in research supervision. I thought that could be really interesting to try out. Revising, using AI-generated proofs in mathematics, flawed proofs, so that students have to identify and correct and find the flaw. And then AI-assisted assessments, AI onboarding the list is amazing and endless. So we're almost at the end. Artificial intelligence and curriculum transformation. So AI is already being used in university systems for efficiencies and effectiveness, including curricular systems, right? So AI is used for, distilling large numbers of applications so that you can reduce the selections and to support registration. AI is used in providing students with curriculum advice and curriculum progression. So for example, when you put your academic structure into an AI-generated program, and then students, if they pass these 5 subjects this year, they enter it into the system, and the system will tell you, well, you have these options, and so on and so on. So curriculum progression is already being done. And then, of course, AI is being used for marking essays. I think I read somewhere some students were reported, some academic who they claim hadn't read their essays and had gotten AI to mark their essays and had taken that academic to the university's disciplinary process. So you can see things are already happening, right? So we're not even talking about something into the future, and they're also changing. So AI is now impacting the university curricula of the future. So when I talk to my colleagues, especially in Asian universities, there are universities that are, like we've had modules for social justice and so on across the curriculum, right, in the post-apartheid period. They now have universities where they say every student who comes in the university must know how to do programming and coding in every discipline. So they are introducing such. So I'm just saying there's really a push now for and it's impacting the curricula in how robotics, genetics, research on space, on the universe, on all these things are really making universities to sit up and think about what are the curricula that our students are going to need 20 years from now, rather than now, or in the next 5 years, in 30 years. And what this is also leading to in the Western world, and certainly in a number of universities, mainly in Europe and in the West, is that there's a fundamental shift happening in the relevance and value of university education. So a few years ago, CHE arranged a visit for DVCs to visit 10 Scottish universities. And one amazing insight was that the Scottish higher education was seeing a decline in the number of their own country students choosing university education. The decline was so sharp that they were recruiting from Asia and everywhere, international students, to make up their numbers. So why this is happening is there's many reasons, of course. In the Western world, students also carry large debt, and they're not able to get the jobs, etc. So many reasons. But one of it is also that there is a growing kind of change in the requirement of a degree, for example, in technology companies. So recently I was reading something about the CEOs of tech companies saying they no longer require a degree for getting a job in the tech. In fact, I remember the figure because the Apple CEO, Tim Cook, I think, said 50% of our employees don't have university degrees, but what they look for is the experience that the student has acquired in the technology, right? Its relevance to the work they're requiring. So what's that going to mean? Maybe we're not there yet, right? But is this the future, that the value of university education might fundamentally change if we don't stay abreast of what students are going to need going into the future? And I'll stop there. Thank you very much.
Can you please give Prof another hand? Let me just correct myself. I said, can we please give Prof, it's actually, can we please give Emeritus Professor, Prof Vithal, another hand? Thank you very much, Prof, for reminding us that AI is not just about machines, but about reimaging our disciplines and identities as educators. What a powerful connection between SOTL and AI, highlighting teaching and excellence and technological innovation as things that should work and walk together. I wrote down a few notes for myself, and I think this was really profound, reflection on what decolonization means in our very own disciplines, and looking at decolonization versus reforms. I found that to be very profound, and also AI's impact on teaching and learning opportunities, and also just looking at SOTL as a bridge, connecting research, pedagogy, and technology for sustainable curriculum transformation. I thought this was really interesting, and also looking at curriculum transformation, moving beyond content to pedagogical and in other reforms. So thank you very much, Prof. This is just what I took, and I'm going to share this space with the floor. I think this is the time where we reflect, but also we're given a chance to ask questions, whilst we have Prof Vithal in our midst. Can I please have 3 hands at a go? I can see one there. I can see another one there, or 3 already. I'll take 3 questions, Prof, for you, and then I'll allow you to speak. We do have a mic close by, so we can just allow the first one to speak. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Speaking is Novuyo Mpola, SRC member and also a final year student at the University of Fort Hare. So thank you very much, Prof, for your address. I have a question which you mentioned, encouraging teaching and learning education. So I wanted to find out, would it not be beneficial for TLC to introduce a course across the institution, specifically for first-year students, in your vast experience as the former Deputy Vice Chancellor for Teaching and Learning, and how would that look practically? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Can we have the other colleague? Yes, please do go ahead.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Prof, for your presentation. My name is Pamandla Nyambo from the Department of Agronomy. You touched on the need for interaction from the natural sciences to interact with curriculum transformation. And I am starting that work in terms of decolonizing and introducing curriculum that is fit for agricultural students. And my perspective, or where I was starting from, is from the history of South Africa. We have a great history when it comes to agricultural production. When Europeans first came to South Africa, they realized how indigenous people were of agricultural or were in crop production and livestock production, and they had impressive produce. But today we have agricultural production that when you speak of black farmers, they are called smallholder farmers and their practices are inappropriate. And so I wanted to ask, in terms of curriculum development, where would you say would be the best starting point in terms of teaching according to how, in a way that decolonizes agricultural studies and the curriculum in a way, because even when we're going into artificial intelligence, it's based on information. And so how do we improve also the information that we feed on the artificial intelligence? So where is the starting point for the natural scientists? Thank you so much, Prof.
Thank you very much for that question. Can we have the last one, please? Thank you. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you, Prof, for this insightful presentation. My name is Zakile Somlata from Nelson Mandela University. My comment, which coupled with the question, is around the CHA study findings, particularly to the lack of consensus on definition of curriculum transformation, which in my view, it is not a surprise. It is not a surprise to me precisely because the terrain that we are operating in, it has two contending forces. Those that are promoting the status quo and those that want to see a real transformation in higher education. My question is around the structural framework of the higher education. In your view, Prof, how far have we gone as the higher education sector in terms of distracting the structural framework that had been in existence during the colonial era, and in order to reconstruct what we desire for advancing curriculum transformation in higher education?
Thank you very much.
The second comment is around a distinction between colonization and apartheid. We have a pre-colonial era. In my view, we have a colonial era and post-colonial era. And then apartheid and colonization are intertwined. But that system, apartheid system, it was a strategy to strengthen the colonization in South Africa, especially around the issue of colonization of a special type in our context, where the oppressors and the oppressed were occupying the same land. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm going to allow Emeritus Professor Fithal to actually respond to the questions. If we do have time, we may have to take another round of questions, but for now, we will just stop here. Thank you.
I'll try to keep the answers short. Okay, so what should be a cross-curriculum module? I'm not a great believer in the cross-curricular, across the university and everybody. I prefer that, we had this LKA, you remember? We have now integrated it so that it becomes more relevant to the disciplines. I think when we use the cross-curricular, we try to push it into every curriculum, it gets disconnected in meaning for the students from the thing they're interested to study. So I prefer that let's say there's some universities, I told you that there's programming and coding that is being introduced across universities, in some universities in the world. There are some universities that require all the students to do, for example, statistical literacy. So very important. So they, in different moments, in different institutions, in different countries, there are different imperatives that become important for that society. My thinking would be, I think that's where you'd need a lot of debate, and that's why I don't want to answer as a DVC, right? I want to answer like a professor, to say, I think that's a discussion that would need to be had. But nothing stops, right? Any discipline or cluster of disciplines to say, this is really important for us. This is how we envision the future of our discipline, and we want to make sure our students, whether it's in education, law, whatever, have this basic foundational understanding. What stops us from doing that? Nothing, right? The curriculum is in your hands. So I think that's where the discussion should happen. The second one, about, so this issue about teaching the history in order to value the knowledge, that the indigenous knowledge and so on, I'm very familiar with that debate, because in mathematics, for example, there has been, in the last 30 or 40 years, the area of ethnomathematics, for example, has engaged that. Here's one thing, I as a lecturer, I had the same view. I want the students to know where this mathematics they are learning has come from. And so, for example, we would engage the number system and say, you know, first of all, the number system we use, a decimal number system, is actually at one time called the Hindu-Arabic number system, because that's where zero and the decimal system was invented. And it took 600 years for Europe to adopt the decimal system we use. But when I was teaching student teachers, right, about the history, they were not so interested in the history. So it's how you connect the history to the future as well, right? What is important and relevant to the future. So I would say in agriculture, for sure, we must value indigenous knowledge. Why? Because there is so much in the indigenous knowledge that is still relevant, right? That hasn't been extracted and codified and become useful. I mean, people from other countries come, I know, in agriculture and take our indigenous plants and extract the, you know, the core ingredients and then market it and so on. So I think we have to straddle building the respect and the knowledge for indigenous knowledge together with the future. So I think our agricultural programs, right, now must teach about how you can do agriculture with AI, with drone technology, with, you know, so even if you call a smallholder farmer, you could still be using technology, right? From what I'm in China and India, a lot of the smallholder have taken control of how they sell their produce in the markets, for example. So I think there's a way in which we shouldn't get trapped into our history, but we should be able to leapfrog, right? So that we value our history and leapfrog to utilize that knowledge into a future using technology. So we could say a lot more. I know I'm being provocative and many of you might have different views on this, but it's one of those discussions that we could have. And on the CHE findings, yes, I do agree with you on your, there's nothing surprising that, you know, we're not gonna have a shared view about curriculum transformation. I don't think that we can prescribe in higher education. I think academic freedom is really important in higher education. Universities have survived centuries because of academic freedom, right? That even as societies change, right? Universities are the place that new ideas arise and should be, you know, and they get contested, right? And some die, but some survive and become important into the future. We all know the story of relativity and Einstein. For a long time, his paper on relativity was not accepted by journals because he was Jewish at that time. And of course, his paper on relativity has fundamentally changed how we understand the universe. So there are many such examples in history. And so I do think that we should have many different kinds of curricula that we think are important in different disciplines, because we can justify to our peers why they are important. And most of all, you will know whether they are important not just to you, but if students come and choose to study what you want to teach. So I think that's going to be the test into the future, right? Do the students choose with their feet? You know, that module, that content you're teaching to them is relevant and interesting and important. And I think that's why I'm saying the scholarship of teaching and learning, which really means constant research and reflection on what we're doing, is going to become more and more key to how we stay relevant and students see value in what we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much once again, Emeritus Professor Vethel. We appreciate that. And unfortunately, because of time, we cannot take another round of questions. But of course, these conversations will continue. And before maybe I address the last part of our program, I just want to give a token of appreciation. To Prof. Vethel, thank you so much for contributing to our lives as individuals, but also as a collective. We wish you the best going forward. Colleagues, as we draw towards the end of today's program, the morning session, as we draw to a close, we want to thank you all. First of all, I want to thank our Vice Chancellor, Deputy Vice Chancellors, Deans, Directors, invited speakers, the staff and students for your active participation. The conversations we've had today remind us that AI and decolonization are not just abstract ideas, but urgent realities shaping our classrooms, curricula, and the future of African higher education. We leave not only with the knowledge that we've had here, but also shared responsibility to ensure that our teaching and learning practices are both innovative and just, progressive and well-rooted in African context. We look forward to continuing these conversations in the sessions ahead and in our daily practice. Before I let you go, I just want to ask my colleague and my co-director to give the last words as well.
Thank you very much, colleagues. You have done well to listen, because we said at the beginning, in the welcome, we have to listen. And you did that. You listened. And then again, at the beginning, it was said there is also the debates that are going to take place. And then we engaged as this collective in the debates. Thank you very much. Now is the time, colleagues, for tea. We'll break for tea, and then we will converge in the rooms, the breakaway rooms. This is room 3. This is room 2, and room 1 is just outside next door. Room 1 is this one. This one is room 2, this is room 3, and room 4 is just outside. Thank you very much. And then now we are breaking for tea, and we'll converge at 12:15. And lunch will be served at 1:15. So in the breakaway rooms, the session chairs should note the time. Thank you very much, colleagues. You have been good to be with you today. Thank you.